And booyah. Ladies and gentlemen, what's up? Coming at you once again. It is your favorite podcast, the number one in the world, Keepin It Rio, episode 198. And today we have got an amazing guest who I've been looking forward to talking to for quite some time. I had her husband on a few weeks ago, the world-renowned, world-famous Jeremy Mayfield. And this is going to be really fun because I just know it's going to be really fun. So without any hesitation, it says Jeremy on the nameplate there, but we're going to go ahead and say, this is not Jeremy. This is his wife, Shana Mayfield. Welcome to Keepin It Rio. How are you doing this evening?
I'm good, Chuck. Thank you so much for having me. And it's so good to see your face again. You've always been such a huge supporter of ours. And I'll never forget you driving all the way from Ohio down to watch us race in Hickory, I think a modified. And then I think you drove back that night or something crazy. So that was super cool.
Yeah, I made it to work the next day. I got in a couple of your guys' J2 videos, and it's been on ever since then. And so cool. Fan way before that. So you guys know, and I've always appreciated everything that you guys do for the fans, like being on their podcasts and stuff. So this is going to be a lot of fun because we've got a lot of stuff we can talk about. I like to talk about the current stuff, the modern times. And I know, to anybody that doesn't know your guys' life story, it's got all kinds of ups and downs and twists and turns. And we'll go through just a tiny bit of that in this, but that's not what I want to dwell on. I'm not here to talk about the past. I want to talk about the present and the future, but the only way we can get to the future and the present is to start with the past. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Shana.
Well, I'm Shana Mayfield. Jeremy and I have been married, I think it'll be 22 years. And sorry, that's Lucy, my English bulldog right here beside me, if you hear anything, in January. And we've got lots of fur babies and pigs and all this stuff. We live in Vail, North Carolina right now. As you know, he was a professional race car driver for a really long time. And we met when I was in college at Clemson. Go Tigers. Nice. And funny story is I quit school with one semester left after I met Jeremy. And you can imagine the conversation I had with my family, how that went over really well, because I was going to move to North Carolina and, quit school. But I ended up going back in 2006 and walking and get my diploma. So I did end up finishing. And we just kind of, traveled every week and raced forever. And now, after all that happened in 2009, we've just kind of, I think, just been trying to keep our head above water for the most part for a long time. And just, I don't think people realize when you go through something like that, you never think you're going to, get back up on your feet after, a little while. But here we are 15 years later, and it still feels like it was yesterday, and just trying to get a grip on just your whole world now and how everything's different. And, luckily we've had a ton of support, and the fans have been amazing. And, Jeremy's been able to keep racing in the Grand National Series, and I'm working full time now. I work at a medical spa, which I love. It's good for me to keep me in a routine and kind of do my own thing. But life's just totally different than it was when we met and got married. And I think that's with anyone. So it's been a ride for sure, a roller coaster ride, but it's been a ride.
Yeah, and roller coasters are fun. At the end of the day, they're very thrilling and fun. So let's go back to 22 years ago. You're just about ready to graduate from Clemson. How did you meet Jeremy in the first place? How did that all go down?
Okay, let me ask you this. Did he tell you the story when you were on the podcast, when he was on the podcast?
No, I didn't ask him.
Because he's got a totally different story and I have the truth.
Okay, so, there's always two sides, right?
Yeah, but he likes to embellish it a little bit. But when I was in college, and my roommate and I'm originally from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I don't know if you knew that, but I grew up in Myrtle Beach. So Clemson was only a couple hours away, but anytime we had a spring break or we had anything going on, everybody wanted to come to my house because I was at the beach, and, we were broke college girls. So we didn't, travel out of town. I think we went to Cancun one time, but we always went to my house. And that was the weekend of the Darlington race. And I was a sports management major at the time. I thought I wanted to do something maybe like with sports broadcasting, footballs. I'm a huge college football fan. You know that. We talk smack every year. But I thought, I was just always a huge sports fan and thought I wanted to do something. So anyway, this was the weekend of the Darlington race. And my parents were like, hey, you should come over, free beer, free rum punch, good time. We're like, heck yeah, we'll come. So my dad's like, well, we'll go through the garage. Maybe you'll like to do some racing. And at that time, I was just like, that's redneck. I'm not really into it kind of thing. But, we went through, and this was when they used to have practice before, like, they'd have practice after the bush race, I guess, whatever it's called before, but now it's just, I think, like you show up and qualify. I'm not even sure how the process works now. But he was in his car and we were walking by and I saw him kind of do like this. And I was like, who is that? And I couldn't see him because he had his helmet on. I'm like, I'm not waving back. I don't know who this cat is, So anyway, he got done or something. We were walking around and I'll never forget, he was standing over there with Ernie Irvin and Dale Earnhardt. And I looked over and he just smiled that beautiful smile. And I was like, oh my God, he's so cute. And then I forget what he said. That's where my memory is gone. But it was something so funny. And I was like, God, he's funny too. You know what I mean? So anyway, I had left to go back to school or something. And he's like, oh, let me have your number. I'm like, sure. Like, how many girls' numbers do you have? Okay, I'll never hear from this guy. And I got back to school and he had called me and he's like, hey, just checking to make sure you got home. Okay. And so we kind of kept in touch because he was, traveling and busy and all that. And I was in school during the week and he was racing on the weekend. So we could never really see each other. So I got to where I was cutting school, cutting classes, driving to North Carolina. We were kind of, he'd land on Sunday. We'd go meet and, just kind of one of those things. And it just got to where one day he was living in a condo in Cornelius and I went down there and I just started bawling, crying. And he's like, what's wrong? I was like, I don't want to go back. And he said, well, just stay. So I stayed and here we are 20 some years later and he still makes me laugh and he's still cute as ever with that smile. So that's kind of how it went. But he tells the story that I was hanging on the fence, like, oh, hey, trying to get his attention. And yeah, hey, Jeremy. Like, he tells everybody I was hanging on the fence and like, oh my God, here, but yeah. So that's his story, but mine's really how it went.
That's awesome. So no experience in racing, not a fan of any sort. No. Just like, hey, this is random. I show up at a race and this cup driver, like, is cool.
Yeah. It was a very, and I mean, really, we were that close to not going that day. And then my parents like, free beer, let's have a good time. I was like, okay, we'll go.
There you go. Free beer is always a good invitation. Yeah, it's this one time it worked out great.
Yeah, especially when you're a broke college girl. So anyway, it was fun, and I kind of like how it all happened because we really got to know each other just talking on the phone, and we're still best friends. Like through everything we've been through, he I think that too. He's one of the funniest human beings on the face of this earth. Like things could be just falling apart around you. And there's been so many days I've been in the fetal position, just crying and scared. And he just said something so funny. And I'm like, oh my God, like he's just, I think you probably see my Facebook post too. Like I want to make a book of Jeremyisms because he'll just say stuff. And I'm like, where did that come from? And it's just so funny. And he genuinely is just funny. So I just, I got to know him, who he really is, and just talking on the phone a lot. And we just became really good friends. I mean, it was just for a while, it's the only way we could make it work. And it was pretty cool. And he's still my best bud,
Yep. That's awesome because, that's a Cinderella story for sure.
Yeah.
And, going from not ever going to NASCAR to all of a sudden you're dating a NASCAR driver, you guys end up getting married not too long after that. Now you've got a totally different life, right? And you're now on the road more often, you're traveling more. Tell me a little bit about how those first, the first couple trips, the first times you got to go out and like actually be a part of that lifestyle. What was how shocking was it? I guess would be the word. Like
it was such, I don't even know how to put it into words. I'll never forget the first race I went to. It was Phoenix. And I remember walking out with him and I was like, oh my, like it's just a whole different atmosphere vibe. Like you're just in the public light. And, back then NASCAR, I mean, it's still a big deal, but it's not like it was in, the late 90s, early 2000s where the place was packed all the time and the atmosphere. I mean, it was just such a cool thing to experience. And I'm so thankful I did, but I can't put into words what it's like sitting on the pit box at Daytona or at Indy and watching them go by 200 miles an hour. And, and then people coming up wanting my autograph or wanting pictures of us and the dogs. And it's just like, like I really you take it for granted because, or I know I did after so many years, I was like, oh, got to go here and do that. Now when it's taken away from you, it's like, you realize what a great opportunity and how blessed we really were to meet so many people like you and the great fans and just people who wanted to be a part of our lives. And just, we're like normal people, but it was just so, I mean, it's so hard to put into words, especially coming from someone I was, Myrtle Beach, Clemson, college girl. And now I'm like in this lifestyle that it's just so surreal, sponsors and the Roger Penske's of the world. And, you're meeting, have Pamela Anderson in our motorhome. I mean, it's just like all these celebrities and LeBron and the Serena Williams and just stuff like you just don't even think about, and people giving you things and you're just like, whoa, this is crazy. And it was, but I feel like Jeremy and I both did a really good job not letting the lifestyle or, I see a lot of people get into that world, and I saw a lot of people change in that world that really, kind of, it hurt a lot to see that, that people you thought were your friends and, kind of go through something. And I'm really proud that Jeremy and I kind of remain, always remain true to who we were. I mean, prime example, so funny. We went to the Waldorf whenever we had the banquet in New York was at the Waldorf, and everybody's at Barney's and they're out, the Louis Vuitton store. And, so they gave us a car. We had a limo. We could go wherever. Jerry and I ended up down in Brooklyn at an RC shop, like eating pizza with the guy and like rolled in with all these RC tires. And I'm down on Canal Street getting my knockoff Louis Vuittons because that's really all I knew at the time I could afford. I was like, these look just as good, so it was just like, it was just, we had access to all the really cool things. We bought nice things too, but we always stayed true to who we were and just kind of, just enjoyed it, but never let it, change us, so it's just the stories I could tell are just crazy because it's just, we had so much fun. And like you said, just going from a college girl to now married to a professional race car driver, it was just like a whirlwind, but it was fun. We always had a good time. Jeremy's, we always did fun things and, tried to experience everything we could when we were out doing those things. So we were definitely blessed for sure. I miss it. Now, like I said, Jeremy and I talk about it all the time, how we used to be like, oh, God, got to go here and got to do this. And now it's like, I'd give anything to have that burden that we felt like, again, we got to go do the, I think we both we'd give anything to be able to go back and do it again. And just because, like you say, you just don't ever think it's just going to go away. Like, you always think, hey, we'll go out on our, on our terms and we'll have another life built and we'll do other things and have kids. And just to have it gone like that, that's another roller coaster whirlwind,
Oh yeah. And that was one of the most talked about things that's ever happened in the history of the sport. And, my opinion of it, I'm sure is very similar to yours, which was y'all got railroaded and it was bullshit. Yeah. But let's talk a little bit before that about, you were on the road for 7 years, I guess, somewhere in that window. Gosh. Going out and meeting all these people. And you said something right there that I was going to ask you about, the friends that you make inside the NASCAR community. You are in there. You guys are contenders. You're driving for big teams, for Penske, for Evernham, winning races, doing amazing stuff, making the chase, pulling a Mayfield and doing all that cool stuff. And one day it just kind of goes away. Right. And it's like, to anybody that knows what happened, I don't even like to talk about it because to me, it's just stupid. And we've seen what's happened to the people that were in charge since then. I mean, I don't know. He might be locked in a room somewhere at this point, but yeah, right. You guys, you go through all this stuff and the people that you made friends with over the course of time, we kind of talked about this when Jeremy was on the show, the drivers and the wives of the drivers and their family members. It's kind of a catch-22 for them, like a lot of them probably felt like this is not legit, but if everybody sees what happens if you speak up or if you try to stand up to the bully, and they probably all feared for their lives as well. But through all of that, I remember a while back when you said, just like what you just did, you thought you were friends with a lot of people and they kind of turn their back on you when you get exiled. After everything kind of cleared, a couple years down the road, stuff settles down a little bit and it's not so much of a headline story. Did you have anybody that ever has come back to you guys and said, hey, Shana, I'm sorry that I didn't stick up for you guys, but I was doing it because we're making millions of dollars and we don't want to get fucked over either, and it's kind of, one of those bad things. Have you had anybody that's come back and said that they were sorry for the way they treated you?
No, I mean, no, not towards me, and Jeremy was way more understanding in that situation than I was. Like, like, you can say a lot of things to me, or you can do, but when you talk about my husband or my dogs, like I get another side of me comes out. So when all that went down, and, we were out on an island on our own, and, I'm not going to name names, but there were, a few people in the garage area that I'd hung out with a lot. And, we had gone and done things together, and I just, knew for sure, like they would have our back. And, when they didn't, Jeremy, he said, you got to understand, honey. He's like, if they stick their neck out for us, they're going to end up like we are. And I'm like, I don't care, because I know if it were you wouldn't, one, say, hey, I'm not getting involved. NASCAR wouldn't, pull you into something. Or two, if it were me and their husband, I don't care who it was, I would reach out. That's just who we are. Like, Jeremy's one, he's not going to let anyone tell him what to do or how to do it. And if he cares about somebody, he's going to reach out and help them all he can. And I'm the same way. And I just felt like, even if they couldn't reach out publicly, like, call me or text me, hey, I'm thinking about you, do you need anything, kind of thing. And, there were, people who weren't wives that I talked to. I'll never forget, Diane Dorton and Kim Irvin. And, there was some of the Patty Petty and I still keep it, there was a lot of the older school women that, really, that I had a lot of respect for, that, would, Nancy Wood, who, she's passed away now, but, there was quite a few who would reach out to me, and I was like, God, the people who I thought would be there for me weren't. But then you kind of find out people who, gosh, I didn't even really know care. So Jeremy, he had a lot more, like a higher tolerance of that kind of stuff, of being like, hey, I get it. I couldn't, because I would just never turn my back on somebody. And especially in a situation like that, I mean, the driver's fine, but the wives, like I said, it just reach out and say, hey, if you need anything, I'm here. But it was just like, once we drove out of that racetrack in Darlington that day and, never went back, it was like, we just, in that group. And it just, there were quite a few people that showed up at our house, driver wise, or called Jeremy that, hey, we're like, hey, I'm here, but not on my end. I can say that. No. And never came back and said, hey, sorry. And it was, one that I thought we were really good friends, like really good friends. And that hurt me a lot. I mean, that hurt a lot. And, and I remember Jeremy a long time ago, whenever we first got into that lifestyle, he was just like, watch your back. We're all out here gunning for the same thing. We're all competitors. At the end of the day, we all want that first place. We all want that championship. So not, you may think you're close to people, but just always keep your guard up. And I think that's where I probably should have been a little more tough, or, more like him per se, and just kind of like, just knowing that this is how it's going to be, and not letting people disappoint me. And, cause he's just kind of like, yeah, it's going to happen, kind of thing. So yeah, I think we had this conversation the other day about looking back on things and doing things different. And, I got really, really fired up about Jeremy because, like I said, I lived the whole thing. I know what happened. I went through every step of it with him. And we were just kind of laughing the other day. I was like, God, there's not a worse feeling than looking on ESPN and seeing my tweets, like, live at the bottom, bleep, 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 just Jeremy Mayfield's wife. And I was like, golly, like, I just got so worked up about it. And maybe people are just like, she's so fired up about it. Maybe I just need to like give her space or something. I don't know, but it still hurts. And I guess I just needed to not let it hurt me, but I'm human,
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it is sad because you really do think, hey, these are my legit friends. We hang out, we spend all these weeks together. We're on the road constantly. Our, families know each other and all that stuff
together. Yeah. I mean, it's like, you can't have like a normal group of friends because you're traveling on the weekend when everybody's off. And then, during the week when everybody's at work, like I consider my group of friends on the weekends, you know what I mean? That we could hang out and do stuff, but should have known better, but it is what it is. Makes you tougher and more selective on your friends nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can pick better ones. And the people that stick with you are the best ones anyway. So, you know,
you're exactly right.
Those that are with you through thick and thin will always be there. And, you know, that was the biggest thing for me is I just thought, wow, you know, what a complete change of lifestyle from one day to the other. And then, you know, you guys, this was something that was publicized this week is that Michael Jordan's team and the front row team, they won an injunction to get their charters or whatever the hell they do with NASCAR nowadays. They were suing them over something and they actually got like a little bit of a victory. But I remember when you guys got that victory too, right? And then it was like NASCAR decided, okay, bro, you want to mess with us? We're going to kill you guys. We're going to take you down.
Yeah. And that's so funny you brought that up because when that happened this week, I told Jeremy, I was like, they have just poked the bear. Because I remember walking out when we won that injunction in federal court. Mike Helton and Brian France were standing at the back of the courtroom, and I just want to say from the start, like we did not want to sue them. Like that was not what we wanted to do. We tried so hard in every way, shape, and form to work it out, and they would not talk to us. They wouldn't, no communication whatsoever, so it left us no choice, you know, and. We knew we had them dead to rights, so we had to fight it. You know, like it wasn't like, okay, Jeremy sat me down. He said, you see this farm, you see these cars, you see, you know, our bank account. He's like, I want you to know when we're all in, all this is going to be gone. I'm like, we have to do it. I mean, one day we're going to have kids. They can't read this about their dad online. Like you've got to fight. Like it's not, you're innocent. Like there's no way around it. So jump forward to when we had the injunction, you know, we were obviously ecstatic because we knew what the judge was saying, the high likelihood of a false positive, the harm done to Jeremy far outweighs the harm done to NASCAR, blah, blah, blah. So we go to walk out of the courtroom and Brian and Mike were standing there and Jeremy extended his hand as a handshake and said, you know, man, I don't want this to be like this. And Brian wouldn't even look at him and says, it's not about you anymore, unfortunately. So I was like, oh, here we go. And then after that, it was, you know, we're in the process of selling the team at that point. We couldn't afford to race. We couldn't afford to do anything. You know, they had multitude of lawyers compared to our couple. And every time we'd file something, I mean, it was pure insanity, you know, then the second test and everything. So it's just, whenever that happened this week and I saw Denny with the tweets and I saw, you know, front row I was like, God, it just brought back. I know exactly how that feeling was, you know, because we went downtown to the Marriott, had some drinks with Bill Deal and John Burek and, you know, the guy, Tim Warren, that was recording all the stuff for the documentary we've been working on. Like we were all ecstatic, you know, thinking, you know, everything's going to work itself out. We're going to be good. And then it just went just downhill from there. So yeah, when you brought that up, it just that was like a throwback that I didn't want to feel because I know exactly how they're feeling.
Yeah, and you know, like I told Jeremy, I mean, Michael Jordan, he's probably a little bit better equipped money wise. He's you know, one of the most famous people. If there's ever going to be a chance of someone that can sue and can actually win, he's probably going to be our best hope.
Exactly, and I hope so.
I do too, because they're only trying to do what's best for everybody involved in the sport. And this is when you can look at it again and still see, okay, all these other people were just willing to agree to whatever. They were getting these weird, you know, you have to sign in 3 hours or else you're not going to be a team and yada, yada. And they all just did it. And it's like, you know, well, we have to. We've got all these teams. We've got all these people. And the thing that you just mentioned was selling your team. You guys had literally just started I guess it was Nextel Cup at that point. Y'all just started your own Mayfield Motorsports team with the 41 car. And it was, you know, that's a challenge in its own, going from, you know, being at a top level team to having your legs swept out from you kind of with your driving and then kind of going back and starting from scratch and building a little team up. I remember when you guys made the Daytona race and it was like, that was probably one of the coolest moments ever, but it takes a lot to get that going. And I'm sure you guys didn't, you know, make all that money back that you put into it before all the bad stuff happened because there's only a few races.
Yeah.
And, you know, having to sell it, you know, how did that work out for you guys? Because like you said, everything at that point is all in And it's like, we're going to take on NASCAR. We've got to get this because we can't race anyway. So none of that stuff was there for you at that point. You guys get into it. And like you say, it's a bully game. You know, I looked at it and I said, hey, dude, they needed somebody to be the poster child. And Jeremy, because of his character or whatever, and his deal with Everham and how things get spun in the media, it just was like, you know, everything was kind of sketchy. But when you guys decide you're going to get into that, Brian France, like you said, I don't even like to say his name. He's a dude, but tells you that it's not about you guys anymore, but we're going to make an example. And because you stepped up, we're going to literally do whatever we can. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, you know, the drug was methamphetamine. And now all of a sudden he's got like stolen property and there's all kinds of criminal shit going on. And you're reading stuff in the media. And the truth of the matter is NASCAR does control the media in that Charlotte region for sure. I mean,
and they have their hands in, you know, local government, small town, like it's money talks. I don't care. Everybody's got a price tag on their soul and on them, you know, and it's like, once you know, when we were in the process, when we won the injunction, the judge said, all right, you can test Jeremy, you know, if he comes back to the track. We had made it very well known we were not going to be in Daytona because, one, it was such short notice, and two, money wise, like we were in the process of trying to liquidate stuff. And they had called Jeremy. This was when our shop was over in Harrisburg. Like, so it's a good little ways from Catawba's when we were living in Catawba. And, you know, you got to get somewhere to get drug tests. And Jeremy's like, I'm not going racing. Like, why do I'm meeting somebody to buy my team. Like, I'm not, you got to get there, or you're, and Jeremy's like, I am not putting my meeting on hold because to appease them, I'm not racing. So long story short, you know, they come out to our house about 7:00 at night with blacked out SUVs. I mean, it's like literally something you see from a movie. Asked Jeremy to pee in the bottle. Here we go. So we go to, that's where the whole second testing, we go to Fry Hospital right afterwards. Our test is negative. Theirs is positive again. So again, they did exactly what they wanted. And, you know, Jeremy even argued with our attorneys at this time. He's like, do you understand if I pee for them, if I pee in this bottle for them, that's all they need. And they're going to screw us again, John. Like he's like, no, you know, we'll go get another test. And Jeremy's like, it doesn't matter. You know, the judge said he can test me. And, you know, he was right. And I feel bad that I didn't, because I was like, oh God, Jeremy, just do whatever they say, because we've got to, you know, and Jeremy's like, I know how this is going to play out. And sure enough, you know, thank God we went to Fry afterwards, that we were smart enough to even think about that, you know, because I think they thought at 7:00 at night, we weren't gonna be able to go anywhere. And Jeremy had not been on his Adderall, you know, for a couple of weeks because it's a controlled substance and everything we had going on. We couldn't get in to see the doctor. And at that point he was just like, I just gotta just whatever. So, you know, there was nothing in his urine at all. And, you know, according to NASCAR, it was amphetamine and methamphetamine, higher doses of methamphetamine than the first time. And, you know, that's when I knew right then, I was like, they will not stop at anything at this point. Like it was, you know, then our house gets raided. Then, you know, we go to, you know, because we were going to the Fourth Circuit to appeal it. Then all of a sudden, I mean, it's like, then all of a sudden they found methamphetamine in our house. And I'm like, it just blew me away, because I feel like I'm living like this, something in a horror movie. Like you just read about, because people, it just sounds so crazy and far-fetched that you're like, there's no way. And hand on Bible, Chuck, like it all went down like that, you know, and it's like the Southern Mafia. I'm telling you, I have never, and then you go back and you read Tim Richmond's story and you're like, okay, they've done it before, you know, and I hope, I mean, like you said, Jordan, it'd take a lot to try to bring him down, or, you know, something like that. Hamlin, don't know, but you know, you got Jordan there. So hopefully they'll be able to protect themselves in whatever aspect. I don't know what their approach will be, but you know, unfortunately, Jeremy and I weren't, like you said, we didn't have Michael Jordan's money. We weren't in the elite status of a driver like Hamlin is right now. If it had been Jeremy back in 2001 or 3, it would have never happened, you know, but we were this small independent team that I think they thought, hey, we can just make him a poster child and he'll do whatever because he's got, you know, everything wrapped up in this team. I mean, they should know by now, Jeremy's not going to just do whatever, you know, he never has. And he's going to stand up for what's right. And, you know, looking back, there's a lot of things we'd have done different, but standing up for what was right is not one of them. You know, I think it'd have been a different approach on attorneys and a different approach on probably that second drug test, knowing what they were trying to do, you know, but hindsight's 2020, you can't look back, but we did the best we could at the time. And, you know, I think Jordan and they sounds like they got some great attorneys. So hopefully they can tit for tat with them money wise, because they outspent us at a good high rate. So we could.
Oh yeah. And it was dispensable income for them. They could just throw it away. And it's like,
and
hey, we'll get you to the point where you can't fight anymore. And the thing that I didn't ask Jeremy about, because I don't, you know, legal stuff is, you know, I don't want to mess with it too much. But the part that I understood was that he had to sign a document that said, you know, we will not sue NASCAR as contractors, as independent. One of the provisions was we cannot file a claim against NASCAR for anything that could happen. So you guys are pretty much dead to rights right off the bat, because, you know, if you don't sign this, you're not going to get to go out and drive these amazing machines. You're not going to be in front of hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people on TV every week. You're basically done. So I get that part of it. And, you know, sometimes you don't really read all this stuff, or you just think, well, that's never going to happen, so we'll just do it. And then you get to the point where you're innocent. He knows he's innocent. People around you, your families and such know so. But again, the media is what it is, and NASCAR pays them a lot of money to spin this to where you guys are you know, basically looking like,
oh, I know,
absolute trash. Like, this dude's a meth head and he's been doing all this. And we go find Jeremy's crazy ex-stepmom and she corroborates with the whole story, probably got paid and stuff. And at that stage of the game, you know, and like you said, I do want to talk just a brief bit about that raid, because I saw that on the Dale Jr. show. And it's like, the part that got me was, you know, Jeremy, like you said, he's kind of been through this. He's been through racing. He sees, you know, how people really are and gets it. But for you, it's kind of a new experience still, and you're not expecting any of this. And the part that really got me was when he said, you know, he's out in the shop, all of a sudden, all these people roll up on you guys. And he says, I come outside and my wife was thrown on the ground in front of our house and you're getting ready to go to work. Yeah. So when this happens to you, like, you're not expecting that, obviously, by any means. It's like, I know we're not everybody's best friend anymore, but we're not expecting all this.
Oh gosh, no.
What's going through your mind at that exact time when you're there and it's like, dude, you know, are we going to be able to survive this? Or are we all about to just, you know, am I about to go to jail for something I didn't do? Or what was going through your mind when that happened? Because I've never gotten that side of the story.
Well, you know, we'd been going through a lot of it before that. And there were plenty of times, like I said, I grew up and I've never been exposed to any like sort of drama. You know, my parents been married 50 some years. I grew up an only child, only grandchild. I wouldn't say I'm sheltered. Jeremy says I'm spoiled, but whatever. But, you know, I was just always kind of protected, you know, like I don't know. I just never was exposed to anything kind of corrupt or negative in my life or, you know, anything. So I don't know if I just kind of lived in a bubble and was like, oh, you know, but when we went through this, and it's pretty major, you know, going through this, and Jeremy finally looked at me one day and he's like, you need to pack up and go to the beach. Let me just deal with this. You go home. Cause I was having a really hard time, you know, just seeing my husband like become a shell of himself. He's depressed. He's full of rage, full of anger. We're trying to keep, you know, power on. We're trying to keep bills paid. We're, you know, Mayfield Motorsports is falling apart. We've got the IRS. I mean, it's not just one major thing. It's a conglomerate of everything that, usually they say divorce, like one major event will lead to divorce. We had like 50 that could have easily led to divorce. And I, you know, part of me is like, you know, I probably should go home because I don't think I can make this. And I was like, I cannot leave him. Like there's, you know, if I leave him just to go home, what's going to happen? You know? So I was like, all right, Shana, just toughen up. You can do this. So, you know, I could handle a lot. And then the raid happened. I'll never forget it. I was just working part-time at that time because just kind of needing something to keep me out of the house, you know, to keep me, just to get me away from it a little bit. And so I was going to work that afternoon and I'd just gotten out the shower. And, you know, this is when we lived down in Catawba. We had 400 and some acres, but we had our driveway was like a real circle. And we lived in a ranch house because the main house we had bought the place and we were just redoing the main house because it was whoever lived in it before had a handicapped daughter. So we were just trying to get it because we were going to have a family and just kind of get it to where we liked it kind of thing. So we were living in the ranch house and it's just a big long driveway and the shop was right over. Well, Jeremy has guys out there, you know, doing stuff and they're building things and blowing stuff up. So to hear loud noises and stuff is not uncommon. I mean, you've seen that, like he's doing crazy stuff all the time. Well, I get out the shower and I hear, and we never lock our doors out there. I mean, at that time you didn't, you know, we just never locked our doors and it was broad daylight. I was home anyway. Well, I hear just, you know, like yelling and I'm like, and I'm in the back of the house. I'm like, what is going on? So I come around and this is when we had our bulldogs and Ivan and I forget the other one. But anyway, Ivan's like raising Cain and I come around and they are like blacked out mask. I mean, doesn't say SWAT, doesn't say, I thought we were getting robbed. Like I legit thought we were getting robbed. And he tells me to get on the fucking ground, shut my fucking dog up. And I'm like, and Ivan's going crazy. And I'm like, he's like, if you don't shut your fucking dog up, I'm gonna kill him kind of thing. I'm like, I can't, you know, I'm bawling crying at this time. So they shove my face in the carpet, zip tie my hands behind my back. And I'm like, take whatever, you know, my husband's over at the shop. Just please go get him. I don't know what you want. At this point, they never said SWAT. They never said Catawba County. They never come in with a you know, a warrant, whatever, a search warrant, nothing. So I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. So they literally pick me up, you know, because I have my hands behind my back, pick me up, take me to the front. It was like November the 1st. I'll never forget it. My hair was wet. The door, okay, we had old doors. The doors are wide open. They take that battering ram and busted the doors open. I mean, the doors were unlocked. Sit me right in a chair. And I'm sitting there and I'll never forget this. I looked down and I could see my heart just like through my chest. And I look over and they are covered the property. I mean, covered. And that's at that point, I was like, we're going to die like this. They are doing, I don't know what this is about, what is going on, but they had come in, ransacked our whole house, took all the, I mean, books out of the bookcase, her whole office. Like they dumped all the stuff out of my purse. And I mean, it was just, I can't even begin to describe to you. It was the worst, absolute worst day of my entire life. Like I've never been so scared of anything ever. And then Jeremy's over there and they finally bring Jeremy over and they never put him or the guys over in the shop in handcuffs. I was the only one that entire time that ever got put in zip ties, which makes no sense to me.
That doesn't make any sense. And it's really, I mean, what an alarming thing. And it's like you said, you almost don't believe that it could even happen because it's so surreal.
And I tell the story, I feel like crazy telling it because I feel like people are like, there's no way that happened. And I said, hand on Bible, like it's a, you know, and then Jeremy comes over and they open up the safe and then, you know, he tells them, you know, just please be careful. I have my dad's fiddle in there. You know, Jeremy's dad passed away. Just don't break it. What do? Take it out, break it, you know, and then take his coins out. And, you know, we kept all of our jewelry and, you know, Ray had given Jeremy a beautiful Rolex for his first win and Dodge. That was in there. Stole our jewelry, stole our money. You know, Jeremy was in the scrap business at the time with a guy out of Troutman. And he was taking loads of copper that they were buying off the internet, like government liquidation kind of thing, just trying to do something to make some money. And that was when, you know, copper was really high. So they were stripping copper and loading it and had a lot of cash in there. They stole all that. That's when they said they came out with their hands kind of closed like that. And, you know, and like, you know what we got in our hand. Jeremy's like, I have no clue what you got in your hand. And he's like, methamphetamine. Jeremy's like, bullshit. There ain't no methamphetamine in there, you know, nothing. And he's like, you need to tell me where you bought it or you're going to jail. And Jeremy's like, fucking take me to jail. I don't know where to tell you I bought it. Because it's not mine. I didn't buy anything. There's nothing in there, you know? And so, they take him to jail and come back again. And so we have stolen this and stolen that. I think he was facing like some insane amount of number of felonies. And then all of a sudden, you know, there's nothing there, you know? And I'm like, by the time we go to the Fourth Circuit to appeal our case, the first thing out of the judge, you know, out of NASCAR's attorney's mouths, which, you know, our attorney kept telling us is doesn't matter, but they're human too. You know, once you hear something, you don't unhear it. And they said, oh, you know, well, Mayfield got arrested for, you know, methamphetamine possession. So what do you think that does to the judges? You know, so of course we lose our appeal. And at that point, it was pretty much over. You know, we were still fighting the felonies, but I guess once NASCAR realized they'd kind of done us in at that point, it was like, okay, well, you don't have to put him in jail for the 50 some insane felonies he was facing. You know, he just does that offered plea or whatever. So we could, and Jeremy didn't even want to do that. He was like, I'm fighting till the bitter end. I am not going to go down for this. And I was like, we've got to move on. Like it was every week, Chuck, like it was, dealing with NASCAR attorneys or now criminal. I mean, it was insane.
Yeah, there's a movie in there for sure. And it sucks that there's a movie in there, because that's one of the hardest stories that I've ever heard. And being one of those people, you don't believe that because it's like, well, I'm a fan and these guys are awesome. And so many people still believed you. But at the end of the day, 99% of the people believe whatever the hell they're told on TV or whatever the newspapers tell them. So to this day, it's probably still something that follows you guys. And
because people are like, well, why would they go through all that? And NASCAR, why would NASCAR do all that? And I'm like, if you knew what an ego NASCAR has, and if you look back at anyone who has challenged NASCAR, what happens to them, you will see why they do what they do. They cannot afford to be beat in any way, shape, or form. There's way too many skeletons in that closet in NASCAR, and there's way too many things they're worried about being exposed. So they will do what, and they knew they had set Jeremy up on those drug tests, and they could not afford anyway to let that come out any way, shape, or form. So they were going to do everything they could. I mean, to the point of, I believe probably even, I don't know. It got to the point I was scared to drive or scared, you just don't know, and it's like they just you can't challenge them. And that's why they have that agreement and everything. I had to sign one too to get a license. And it's like I told Jeremy, okay, so if I go in a bathroom on NASCAR grounds and one of them raped me, I mean, I can't sue them. Guess not. I mean, they just can do whatever they want to do to you. You're their property. End of the day, you are their property. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. Oh, wait, you can't go anywhere else. There's no other place you can race stock cars. There's no other place you can do this. So you're going to do what we say. And they take a lot of pride in that control, that ego, the money, that they're prideful like that. They think they can do whatever they want to do to whoever they want to do it when they want to do it. And that's how they've been forever. And that's how they're always going to be. And they do not like anyone to try to tell them otherwise. And they don't care about keeping things even or the playing field even. That's not part of their script. They want certain people to run well, certain people to do good. They don't want certain people in the sport. They want other people in the sport. I mean, that's just how they are. And anybody that says otherwise is delusional or just drinking the Kool-Aid they're giving them. And I'm not saying this as a bitter person. I'm just saying it as truth, as living it for a long time and going through what we went through. We discovered a lot of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of people that reached out to us and was like, hey, I've got to tell y'all this, can't say anything, but I've got proof. We saw proof of certain things. And there's a lot of stuff that they do not want to get out or, they could be in big time trouble. And I hope, if they push MJ or Denny to the point that, maybe they'll, hopefully it'll go to trial and they can expose some things because I'm sure they know stuff too, of how they've twisted people's arms into doing things and, being around things that didn't need to be a part of that sport. So.
Yeah. And I'm with you. I hope that something can happen, but that's just horrible, horrible experience. But at that point, you're obviously like, all right, dude, our chances of going back and racing are zero. There is no possible way.
Yeah.
So now we have to kind of put our lives back together. We have to, stick together and stay close. Like you said, there are many times where you probably are thinking, oh my gosh, we're never going to get out of this. And what the hell? But you stayed in there and fought and did the right thing, even when everybody was fighting back and everybody was saying you guys are crazy and you're criminal and all this stuff. And it takes years to get through that process. And I'm sure it was very difficult all the way around. Like you said, multiple felonies. There's 100 years in prison or whatever the heck the deal is. And it's like, dude, how does that happen? And then you start thinking about it from a logical standpoint, and there's no way that it can happen. But like you say, people drink the Kool-Aid. They don't want to stand up against it because they know that it'll happen to them. Absolutely. So you're all alone. You've still got your fans, because I know one thing: we never left you. Your fans, you guys, we were there for you guys from the very beginning. And I wore my Mayfield gear for like 3 more years after you guys were out of racing. And I've never watched NASCAR hardly at all since. I'm not a fan of it in any way, shape, or form. I don't watch it at all. But yeah, you guys have to then kind of pick up the pieces. And now it's going to be a different lifestyle, obviously, because all that money, all the fame, all that stuff is gone. It's actually completely opposite where, it's you can't call somebody and say, hey, man, can you sponsor me? Can I do a commercial for you? Nobody wants to be associated with you guys in any way. How do you go about the process of just saying, all right, man, it is what it is. Let's build this back up. What does that first steps look like for you being, so closely involved in everything? And, what kind of things did you have to go through in those days after, getting basically exiled and getting treated like shit to, where we're at now, where you guys have kind of put everything back together and life is pretty decent again, but I'm sure still ups and downs. But what was that like for you going through that process?
I mean, I don't know if we've ever really like had the closure from it. Like, I still feel like we are still like dealing with it. It's just kind of getting smaller and smaller every day. We've never like shut the door on anything per se of like, now it's over. Now we've moved on. I think if you lose hope, you've lost everything. And we just, hold on to the hope that, something's going to come around. Somebody's going to want to help Jeremy. He's going to, there's somebody out there that will come along. We can do our movie. We can do our book. We're still working with Tim on the documentary. It's just one thing after another's happened. So it's just, I don't know. That's so hard to verbalize because I feel like we haven't really moved on, I guess. Like, it's just like we kind of just, it's day by day, we just get up and like, okay, we're going to try to, get through the day and get this done. And, his heart's still in racing. And, I think he'll never completely walk away. And it's hard for me because I'm like, you never expect this late in your life to still be dealing with something like that. We're 15 years in and it's still, like you said, okay, he's racing the Grand National Series, but it's hard to call somebody as a sponsor and be like, hey, I wanted to put you on the cart. And they're like, not sure. Even if it's $1,000, I mean, we're not talking about 5 million in a cup car or whatever it is, even, 1,000 or 100. And that's why you'd see this year us trying to, get people to help us out if we can, because it is hard. And, but that's all Jeremy knows and loves. And that's all he's ever wanted to do. And that's never going to change. So it's just a matter of trying to find a balance of letting him still be able to race and get that fulfillment and that peace and that what he loves with that. But at the same time, still trying to live and pay bills and have some kind of, financial stability in future. Because when I say we lost everything, we lost everything. Like, it was like, you just square, we're back to zero in the bank account then, like you got to build it. Cause I mean, we had everything in that race team. And then we had to fight and we had attorneys and I mean, it was a nightmare. And so now, this is probably the littlest and least we've ever had in our whole entire lives, but we're happy. I mean, it's, you just learn that stuff. I mean, I still like my things. I just kind of like to go thrifting now to get my shopping fix. And, Jeremy's tinkering on his race cars out there. And I mean, it's just, you just got to, play the hand that's been dealt you. And it's not easy. And some days are easier than others. Whenever, February rolls around, Daytona, it's like one of the worst times around here. Because, you always think, I remember thinking, when all this first started, like, okay, next season we'll be there. This will be behind us. We'll be able to go back. We'll be there next season. And the next thing we're 15 seasons in and we're not going back. And that reality becomes clearer and clearer every year. And it's just still hard to accept because it's, you feel like you're robbed of something and it's so unjust. And you sit there and see that sport's still going on and it's still going on without you and they're still thriving. Well, somewhat. I mean, they're not thriving, but it's still, everybody's living their life. And here we sit of no doings of our own. And it's just, it's hard. It's hard not to be, eat up with bitterness and upset and stuff, but you just kind of gotta, you just deal with it every day. I don't know. It's hard. It's not easy. It's definitely not easy. And it hasn't been easy. And I keep thinking it'll get easier and it really doesn't, it's just, it's not the wealth and the fame and the stuff like that. It's, you know, seeing my husband happy and fulfilled, and, you know, he's not happy like he used to be. I mean, he's still funny and fun, but you see him now and it's just like, he's just kind of a shell of himself, because he's, you know, I always tell people, like, I still at 48, I'm almost 48, I don't know what I want to do. I don't have like a passion. And Jeremy, you know, at 2 years old I want to be a race car driver. And I admire someone who knows what they want to do, loves what they do, loved their job, you know, was the best at what he did, was so passionate, was so 100% into it. And then just to have that taken away, I can't imagine, you know, because he really loved it, loved it, you know, and not the wealth and the money and all that. He loved being in that race car, and he loved racing that race car. So that's just the hardest part. It's like trying to, you know, the Grand National Series has been fun, and I'm thankful for Bob and Patty and for everybody being so welcoming. You know, him and Donnie Doster are working on some things for next season, so that's got him excited. And, you know, I'm thankful for that whole thing, because it has been fun, you know, being at the racetrack, even though it's not, you know, 36 weeks out of the year, it's just a few. It's so much fun. So that little bit that we can get is awesome, and it's amazing. You know, I wish we could do it again as a full-time job, as a career, and, you know, maybe somewhere down the line he can in some capacity, you know, I don't know when, where, but yeah, it's just something we just deal with and just get through the day and see what happens.
Right. And I mean, that's all you can do. That's life. And it's just, you know, they always say life's not fair. And that's the greatest example that I've ever seen in my life of just, damn, that's not fair. But let's shift into something happier now, right? Let's have a good part of this story.
Okay.
Years later, you guys go through all this stuff. I was visiting my mom over in Ohio, and I was looking at Twitter this day, and it says, you know, Jeremy Mayfield is going to be testing this modified car at Hickory. And I'm like, dude, what? Are you kidding me? Like, I thought for sure that we'll never see this guy behind the wheel ever again. He's just going to fade off into obscurity. Like, you know, all of the fans are just sitting there thinking, dude, like, what do we do now too? You know, we don't, I didn't root for anybody else in NASCAR the entire time I was a fan. And I watched every race every week. You know, I went to like 70 plus NASCAR races, and every race I went to, I was wearing a 12, a 19, a 36, whatever. And it's like, you know, it sucks. So I see this and I get really excited, right? And it's like, well, Jeremy's going to run this modified car. I got in my car and I drove to Hickory, and it was like a 9-hour drive. Went there. I got to meet you guys after the race, which to me was like one of the coolest things that's ever happened, because I didn't think that would ever be a thing. You know, like I'd seen and met Jeremy a couple times prior to that, like through fan stuff. And I went to the Evernham fan day and I got sheet metal that's autographed by him and all that good stuff. But it was like, you know, you're just a random fan. But I went over there and it was like, hey, man, you know, I'm so thankful that you got the opportunity, even if you don't race ever again, you know, and it was so worth that drive just to go over there. And from that, you know, it kind of stalls out a little bit, but you guys start getting into racing a little bit more, get that modified car, start doing really, you know, pretty damn well with that thing. I went to a race and y'all were like completely dominating the field, and then had something happen. And you can see, okay, this guy's he's still got it as a driver. He obviously still has the passion because he's doing it, you know? And it's like, if at that point, I'd probably just be like, you know what, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. But he got that opportunity. And I wanted to ask, you know, when you guys get back in front of the fans and you're actually there racing at these events, the smaller tracks, how receptive and how welcoming were the fans to you guys in those first few events that you got to go back and race? Did you have a bunch of people that were hating on you, or were most of the people pretty cool? Like, hey, you know what? We kind of think you guys might have got screwed. Y'all are pretty cool. You know, you seem like great, legitimate people. You're out here hanging out with the fans and being good with us. What was that experience like when you guys got to get back into it? Just right there briefly, because I'm sure it was probably pretty damn scary. You know, that race at Hickory was probably, you know, that's one of the biggest races of his career, if you really look at it, because everything that y'all went through to be able to get back there, but there's still that fan backlash. So what was it like for you guys there live and in person at those events?
I think through all of this, I mean, you know, there's always going to be the one or two bad apples in the bunch that when you get to a racetrack. I mean, nobody says anything to your face or anything, but you know, there's the whisper and the look. It's almost like, there he is, you know what I mean? Like, here he is in the real, you know. And I think, and it's funny because everybody that sees Jeremy now, they're like, God, you don't age a bit. You don't look like you changed at all. You know, and I'm like, I'm like, there you have it.
Yeah, you're
like,
on meth, bro. You're supposed to be
yeah,
dead by now,
exactly.
not looking exactly the same as you did 20 years
I know,
ago.
not be able to fit in your suit that you still like wore from 2004. Like that's so unfair. I can't fit in my jeans, but yeah, but everybody was very, very supportive. And you're right, it was very nerve wracking, and not. Hold on, Lucy's growling. No, Luce. It was very nerve wracking to go and not knowing the reception you were going to get, but everybody was really, really sweet, and I think the more like the time went on and, all that stuff happened to Brian and he got arrested and, and I think the longer the time goes and people start to see the things that NASCAR does, our credibility and our, they're like, oh, I could see this happening. That's not beneath them to do this to someone else. And that's, you know what I mean? So I think the more we go out now and more we do, it's just even better. I feel like we've always had a lot of support, and I feel like it just gets better and better the more we go out, because people, I think, like you said, people would have been like, Jeremy's, he'd just be done. Like, why would you even do it? And I think people admire the fact that he still is showing up and he still is racing. And I know there for a while, like, how can you not get depressed or down on yourself? And he was really depressed. And I kept telling him, I would, read him things that people were saying on Facebook or Twitter. And I'm like, hey, there's so many people out there that love you and want to see you. Like we have to go out and do some things. We have to, and he was like, I just, why would they? Why would they want to see me? They probably think this and that. And I'm like, people that know better know, and it took a lot for him there, for a minute to get out. Cause it was hard on me, but imagine being him, you know what I mean? Having to be in front of your peers and in front of your fans. And, Jeremy felt like he had just, let people down and disappointed people. And, and I'm like, people know better, and just having to like, let him understand that. So the more he would go out and be around people and see how supportive, and he would just, it was really good for the soul in both of us, so being able to go to the racetrack and having people around that were, hey, we'll sign this, or let's get a picture, or, it was super cool. And I think that helps everybody, and just knowing that you're loved and supported it meant a lot.
Yeah. And like you say, I think the majority of us looked at it and said, well, wait a minute, man, we've kind of seen this guy and we know, you guys were on a reality TV show. So it was like, we got to see the inside part of your lives. Right. And it's like, at no point do you ever get this inclination that we're just any of that stuff has happened. Right. And it's like, dude, this is a screw job. We all realize it. And I think it's beautiful that so many people did reach out with positive, because I can't even imagine. I mean, I'll never be able to understand what that's like, because I've never raced in the Cup Series. I've never won a bunch of races. I've never been at the top, and I've never had my rug pulled out from behind me when I was just standing there. But it's very remarkable. We talked about that during our podcast episode that we did a few weeks ago. And it's like, once you get back out there and you start to feel a little bit more like yourself, you start to get back to racing again a little bit. And, like you said, now you guys are doing the Grand National Series, which to me, I watch every single race. It's like NASCAR was to me back in the day. Yeah. And the thing that I really like about it is you are very interactive with people on there as well. If you're at the event, you're on the Facebook feed or the YouTube, like, we had a right rear go down, or, something happened on the tire. Or if you're not at the race, you're like, well, what just happened to the car?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure it out. Awesome. And you guys have always been like that to the fans. I told Jeremy the one time that I really remembered was kind of cool was when we were at Bristol, and it was when there was a blizzard. And I was there, and it was one of the craziest days, the craziest weekends of my whole life, because I'm sleeping on the floor of a camper. The water was something was wrong with this camper. It's like 50-year-old camper. Water was coming up through the floor. I wake up, I'm soaking wet. It's like 10 degrees out, snowing. We get to the race, and there's a blizzard going on. Everybody has to get up, and they red flag it for a while. And you go to the bathroom, and you're like, thousands of people standing under the dryers at the restrooms just to stay warm. And I said, the drivers came back through there, and Jeremy was one of the guys that walked through. And I just remember he kind of looked out the crowd and was like, man, y'all are crazy, but you could tell that he appreciated it. The other guys were just kind of walking by like, whatever. They were kind of, off put by the whole deal, but he stopped and was like, man, y'all are crazy. We appreciate you and all that stuff. And that's the guy that we all respect and appreciate and know. And now he gets to go back. He's a championship level driver, won the drivers championship and the owners championship. And I'm not going to lie to you, as a fan, like that was as big to me as like any of the cup wins or any of that stuff. And we could still watch that stuff to this day, and it still gives you the same feeling, you know? And just
I wish the funny thing about like this year is I wish I had a picture. The car that Jeremy had been driving in the Grand National Series. Do you remember? Remember we had J2?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
He raced that. I can't think of the name of the series, but he raced a stock car series for a while. Anyway, he had that car. Somehow it ended up in a black guy's yard in Charlotte. Jeremy traded him some stuff to get this car back, and it literally had like trees growing through it. And Jeremy worked. Not a penny we could spend on it. He took parts and pieces of stuff he had around this shop and redid that whole car, painted it, decaled it and everything, and showed up. And, you know, until we blew up the motor, he had raced that car. And I was so proud of him just from the fact that when I say we were probably the brokest team there, I'm not joking. Like we had nothing, and he just worked his guts out, just trying to get to the racetrack and to, sorry, Lucy, hey, quit. And then, and to get there and to win both championships. He was like, and you know, we both just cried because he just kept saying, he's like, it's just bigger. It's bigger than that. It's bigger than the Grand National Series. It's just 15 years of doubt and disappointment and, you know, depression, all these things that you're dealing with. And just to be able to come back and do it, and to do it on his terms, and to race like he wanted to race and have fun and be around a cool group of people. It was so much fun. And you know, I wish I could have gone to more, you know, races with him, but being that I work now full time, I couldn't. But, you know, I'm always watching them and listening, and I try to go to as many as I could. But, you know, I was there for that last one in Dominion, and it's hard to put into words. I mean, we've never won a cup championship or anything like that, but I think that was bigger. I can't imagine the feeling of everything we put into it, and everything we've been through was just so much bigger than just, because I remember, you know, Jeremy was crying, I was crying, and Patty's like, he's crying. I'm like, it's so much more. Like nobody could ever understand how much that meant, because to go out there and to prove to himself, you know, because I know he got down on himself. I know he had doubt, and I know you know, everything gets in your head, the chatter and the people and the thoughts and all that. So I think it was so good for him and his outlook on everything, and to breathe a little bit of life back in him, you know, because that's where he thrives, and that's where he's alive, and that's where he wants to be. So to have that opportunity, I could never thank Bob and Patty enough, and AJ and, you know, his wife. They're the nicest people, and they do anything in the world to help Jeremy, and they have. And you know, I feel like we'll have a home there for a long time, you know, and try to grow the series. I know they're working on some stuff this year to get a lot of good cars there. And like you said, the racing's really good. You know, if we can get a field full of good cars, I think it'll just elevate the series a lot more. And they're working on some things. And I'm thankful that Jeremy can be a part of like the brainstorming on that side of it. And, you know, because he's smart. I mean, he knows racing, you know, he knows everything about it. And he's a good resource for anyone to have. So I think him being able to be involved in that, it's been really good for him, for his mentality and just for everything. You know, it's been a blessing for sure. And that opportunity would have never happened if it weren't for the Dell Junior download. I mean, you know, that the download was huge for Jeremy to do. And, you know, Bob messaged me on Facebook and was like, hey, I heard Jeremy's interview. I want to put him in one of my cars. And there you have it, you know. So I think I'm very thankful to Dell for letting him, you know, do that. That was a big deal, you know, to have Jeremy on there, because it wasn't like a positive, fun storytelling podcast. I mean, he kind of put himself out there, you know, giving him that opportunity. And so that really, really helped him get the story out and, you know, people to understand a little bit more. And I think being on there, you know, for Dale to do that was big. And it showed that Dale respected Jeremy enough to have him on there and let him talk and, you know, tell his side of the story. And so I'm thankful for that. So yeah, it opened all kind of doors, and, you know, and now the Grand National Series, I feel like, you know, everything's can go up from here. I hope, you know, I mean, I still think it's still hard. And like I was telling earlier, it's just day by day, but it's getting easier every day. It's just not completely gone, but it is getting smaller and smaller in the rearview mirror. So hopefully it'll, we can look back maybe a year or two down the road and be like, okay, we're good. Like we're back to normal. Everything's great. This is our new life and we're good with it. So as long as he can keep racing, I think we'll be okay.
Right. And I mentioned that same thing about Dale Jr. And it was like, honestly, that is like sent from God, because there are not too many people that nobody's going to watch my podcast and be like, yeah, I changed my mind completely on it. But Dale Earnhardt Jr. is like the most popular guy. He's the face of the sport, really. And for him to stand up and say, look, dude, you come on here, you tell your side. And like I told Jeremy, I think Dale Jr. did him an even bigger favor by having BF on there like 2 weeks later, because you could clearly see the difference between one and the other. And it was like, how did that guy find his way to the studio that day? Like he looks absolutely horrible, and he's been booted from the sport, from his own family and all that. And
I think he's been drinking the whole way there, like in his coffee cup. Like he looked so disheveled, and that one eyeball out here. Like I was like, "What? This is a mess,"
This dude's definitely the guy that needs to be judging others.
Yeah, who's the one with the problem? Hello,
And I think that really, number one, when Dale had Jeremy on, it says like you say, it's a respect. They raced together for 7-8 years, however long Dale was in the Cup Series. They know Jeremy. The drivers, I think probably every single one of them was like, dude, this guy is a good dude. We've raced with him forever. I remember Jeff Burton was one. I remember when they did the press conference right when it was all going down. And he's like, look, dude, I've raced with this guy. I trust him out there on the track and all that. And I think they just, like you said, they couldn't really come to your defense for political reasons.
I said that because I was kind of, after all this stuff happened this week with 2311, all that, I kind of went down the rabbit hole of reading, the judge's ruling on ours, just kind of looking at the verbiage on our ruling with their injunction, and just kind of looking at our thing, because it really just brought back, I was like, whoa, this is so deja vu. And I was reading quotes from drivers. It's funny you brought that up, because it was like, I remember Matt Kenseth and Jeff Burton, and I think Stewart or some other people were like, I've never had an issue racing Jeremy. I've never felt, and that's another thing that blows my mind when they were talking about, Jeremy's a threat to, I think they said 100,000 people or something at the racetrack. I'm like, one, there's not that many people there. And two, in 2009, he's never been a crappy driver or someone you ever had to worry about when people are racing around him. He's always been a clean driver. He's always respected other people, and people respected him. He wasn't like what we say, a weapon on the racetrack, he never had that reputation. So it just blew my mind that him, out of all people, would be worried about him being on the racetrack racing with him. That was just, again, NASCAR trying to control the narrative of what the drivers think, when the drivers never thought that at all. Never. I would bet my life right now, not one person would genuinely say that unless NASCAR twisted their arm. Not one person. And I could bet my life, Lucy's life. Like he not one time ever did anything stupid where people were like, he's crazy. Maybe when he wrecked Rusty that time at Vegas, that might have been the only time.
That was kind of cool, though. I'm not gonna lie. I was a big fan of that moment. That was fun. I
was like, we tell that story to her. It's like, God, that was the worst feeling. Like, being teammates, and then just, oh gosh, you could hear a pin drop in the middle of Las Vegas Motor Speedway when that happened. But yeah, he just didn't do stupid stuff. So that just, again, them controlling the narrative and trying to make you think something that's not reality or not true. So
yeah, and to have the biggest star in the sport stand up and say, look, here's a place. I'm not going to be positive or negative. I'm going to be neutral on this. I'm not going to say the NASCAR narrative. I'm going to let you tell your side.
Yes.
Yeah. And to me, that was the greatest thing ever. And I think that since that happened, you guys have probably seen a huge turnaround as far as fans saying, oh man, maybe this wasn't exactly how it happened. And maybe this dude really got screwed. And I think that's the greatest possible way that whole thing could have come around and, could have come to its full circle, so to speak. And now you guys have, like you said, a bright future ahead, racing, getting some stuff going over there. I'm talking with some of my buddies about being sponsors at some point. And I got a little bit of work that I need to do on my side before I can do something like that. But I've got some friends and everything that are involved. And yeah, you guys know I've been a fan forever, and I always will be. And I think that, like you said, it gets smaller each day, and it's going to be something that's going to carry with you for the rest of your lives. And you just have to kind of accept it, because there's nothing you can do at this point about that.
And it changes you, like you think about like I always compare it, and I'm not, you know, saying what happened to us is like 9/11. It's, you know, people lost their lives. That was a major thing. But you always compare it to, like, you know, where you were that morning it happened. You remember the day before, you remember the day after, how your life, you know, the whole world just changed. And I remember how we were the day we got that phone call, and, you know, we'd missed a race in Darlington and getting that phone call from Jim Hunter and all that happened. And you just remember. And then the next day, your whole life just completely changed, you know, like, it's just like that day is just written in history, and that's just where it all changed, you know. And it's just who you were that day and before, you're totally different after that. You know, it just changes you, not just your, you know, your financial situation, your living situation. It changes who you are. I mean, it changes everything. And I, you know, I hate that, because, you know, it just there's nothing you can do except just grow from it and try to be better. And it's hard, but like you said, it's part of our history. It's part of who we are. We can't change it. We just have to grow from it. I mean, you know, I'm proud that we've been through all of it together and we're still together. You know, that's something that we're both super proud of. It hasn't been easy. You know, we're best friends, but we fight like best friends too. You know, I mean, it's just a lot of stress, but we both love each other enough that we haven't left or threatened to leave or walked out on either of us. So, you know, I'm really proud of that, because I think you don't see that a lot this day and time. And I think that goes to show how much we do love each other, and how much we are friends, and how much we care about each other, and care, you know, truly care and truly love each other, you know. So I'm really proud of that. And I'm proud of him for being true to himself and standing up. And even though it cost us everything, I could never, you know, you can't say anything bad for about someone like that, you know, that's true to who they are and will fight. And Jeremy's a fighter. Everybody knows that. He didn't come up easy. He didn't make it in the sport easy. He didn't have a rich daddy. He didn't have anything, and he fought his way to the top, and, you know, may have lost everything, but he'll be back somewhere on the top of something else, hopefully. And he's not a quitter. So we'll just, everybody stay tuned. We'll see what it is next. Maybe he'll be an IT guy. Maybe he'll own his own IT business.
Yeah, right. I mean, we wouldn't even be having this conversation if not for Mr. Mayfield.
That's right.
Yeah, he fixed everything, and so yeah, there's a future in that if the racing doesn't work out, but the racing's gonna work out. And I'm super proud of you guys. I'm super proud of, you know, your story, the perseverance, and just the people that you are. Because the reality is, he could have just said, okay, yeah, I'll go to rehab, and then, you know, maybe he could have gotten back into it. And instead of doing that, it's like, no, screw that. I'm standing up for what I believe in and for what's right. And knowing what's going to happen, you can't not respect and appreciate that.
You can't. And, you know, and what's scary though, like, it's like you said, we had all of the evidence on our side. We had everything we needed, negative drug tests. We had, I mean, everything we needed. And it just goes to show that it doesn't matter. Like, sometimes, you know, people can be bought, judges can be swayed, attorneys can be swayed. When you're a big powerhouse like that, anything can happen. But at the end of the day, we all leave this earth the same way we came in. And I really believe there's a special place for people like that won't be where I'm going. And, you know, they'll pay for it one day, in one way, shape, or form. And because you just can't, you can't do that to someone and expect that anything good's going to come out of it. And maybe with like we talked about at the start of the show, with the whole 2311 in Jordan, this might be that what gets the ball rolling on, you know, them finally treating people like they need to be treated, and not being such a controlling, you know, group that they are, and make it fair for everybody. I don't know, you know, I hope.
Yeah, that's all you can do at this point, is hope, and for the future people that they don't have to go through something like that, which, you know, that probably won't happen ever again to anybody. And you guys were a huge example, and that's something that you lived through, and it made you stronger. It made you a better person. And now we're in modern times where you guys are champions and getting to go out and do racing and getting to have fun again. And, you know, the people that love you guys have always loved you, and we're always going to be here. And I can't say enough how much I appreciate you taking the time to tell your side of the story, because I didn't really want to ask Jeremy much about it, because I wanted to talk about his racing. You know, that's what's fun. And you get to give the perspective of, you know, this was what the bad part of it was. And I appreciate you being so candid about it, being so honest. And I love you guys, man. You know, like, you are very, very awesome. And I hope everything works out for the best. And I know it will, because good people always end up on top. And, for you to take the hour plus time to just talk about your story really means the world to me.
Yeah. There's so much more. I could talk forever. You know that.
Well, Jeremy, this segues to the invitation for another episode somewhere down the road.
Absolutely.
And we'll have a great time talking about what happens.
Maybe we'll do one together. We'll do a couples one. Him and I can come on together.
Oh yeah, because I got a lot of questions for both of you together about that reality show and all that stuff too. So
yes,
that'll be amazing. Let me ask you this. This will be the last question I have for the episode. You mentioned it, Jeremy mentioned it, a book, a movie, a documentary. What does the future look like for you guys? And how far along are these types of things? Have they been discussed? I think that a movie or a documentary would be like the coolest thing ever. And I know you guys started doing one there on the YouTube channel, and I watched every second of it probably 50 times. What does that look like moving forward? Is that something you guys realistically are going to be able to make happen, or what's the plans for that?
We definitely, that's definitely the end goal. Something's going to come out with our story, whether it's a book, docuseries, movie, or all the above. But Tim, like you'd mentioned, we've done the reality show NASCAR Drivers 360 on FX, and Tim Warren was the producer. He flew down when all this happened with Jeremy, literally not a week or so after, and moved in pretty much with us. He flew in from California and was like, I know you guys, I've been around y'all. This has got to be complete bullshit. Like, there is no way I'm buying it. So we have like 800 hours of raw footage from, him going, we took Jeremy to drug tests. We took, interviews with attorneys and just interviews with people. So we have all of that. And, the thing about it is, what's hard is, we're 15 years in, Jim Hunter's passed away. There's a few key players and some of this stuff that, life, people have gone or passed away, or, things have happened. So we're just trying to tie up loose ends on some stuff. And Tim's got some big projects out in California. He's working on, he did that Hot Wheels show last year. So, it's just timing and trying to, put it all together, but we're definitely going to finish it up one way or the other. And Tim's excited about it, and we are too. So it's just a matter of, we want to have that happy ending, and hopefully this Grid National Series is part of it. And, so yeah, it's definitely in the works, not like actively, but we have it, all of the footage, and we have, the idea of what we want to do. It's just a matter of finding the right person. If we do a book, or, what's the approach we're going to take, or are we going to have to go in witness protection once we lay everything out that we know? Because there is a lot of stuff, there's a lot of stuff that we didn't get a chance to, reveal because we couldn't go to court. They dismissed the case before we even got the opportunity. So there's a lot of stuff that we have that, we will get out one way or the other, and that's, we're hoping, would either be a book or put it in the docuseries. Who knows? But it will get out, because it's just part of our story, and it's part of their story that nobody wants to tell, that needs to be told. So just waiting for the right opportunity.
I love it. And it's going to come back to you guys. And I think at the end, everybody's going to have the glorious ending that you guys deserve. And it's going to be, it'll never be like, man, I'm thankful that we went through all that, but you're going to realize that who you are now wouldn't be who you were if you didn't experience all that stuff. So I appreciate that. And
I think too, like, we talk about Jeremy and I talk about how missing racing. And then I look, I'm like, I think we miss what it used to be. Like, I think if we went back now, we'd be miserable.
It's not the same.
It's not the same. I think we're so blessed that we got to be there and really be the prime of his career when it was, because that was when NASCAR really was a major sport and something that everybody looked to watch and everybody did. And now it's just kind of like, you miss it, but when you look at what it is, it's like we miss what it was. And luckily we were there when it was what it was, if that makes sense. So I'm thinking even if we went back now, it wouldn't be fulfilling or fun for him. I think where we're at now and his journey and racing, he's having a lot of fun and kind of getting to race those old cars that he raced when he was in NASCAR and that kind of stuff. So I think it's kind of a do-over, but in a different way with the same cars that he loves so much. So that's really cool.
Yep. And like I said, it's going to be great. And then the ending is going to be happy. I can promise that, because that's just what happens to good people. So one thing I got to mention before we end this episode, I always do this, is I almost forget. my sponsor. And my sponsor is roofer.com. And Roofer is a software program, ROOFR.
Okay.
And they're a software program for roofing companies, obviously, basically a CRM program that takes you from your initial contact with the homeowner all the way through the final payment and everything in between. And I said this at the episode with Jeremy, I think, but I think Roofer would be a pretty badass sponsor for Jeremy Mayfield in the Grand National Super Series. So my friends at Roofer that sponsor Keepin It Rio, you know, hey, the CEO of the company, it's funny. I told the CEO of the company that I was having Jeremy Mayfield on my podcast, and we were on a FaceTime, and this is a major sponsor. They're big. And he was like, man, you know, that's so cool. My dad's a NASCAR fan. I'm going to tell him about that. So Richie Nelson, you know, I got an opportunity right here to really make your dad, you know, blow his mind. Sponsor Jeremy.
Come on, Ricky. Is it Ricky?
Richie Nelson.
Richie. Okay, come on, Richie Nelson. Roofer will look good on the roof.
Exactly. It'll look good on the entire car as a primary for the entire season. So anything that we can do to make something like that happen would be awesome.
Anytime.
Yep. Open invitation to you, to Jeremy, both of you together. Anytime you guys want to come back on Keepin It Rio, you are always welcome. Awesome. As long as I'm doing this damn podcast, which I have a goal of 2,500 episodes. This is 198, so I still got a little bit to go, a couple weeks. We could do another 1,500 episodes together if you want to. And it'll be
yeah.
We'll take care of that. And like I said, Shana, thank you so much for taking the time. You're one of the people that you're just genuine, and it just shines right through the camera. It shows, you know, the type of person you are. You didn't leave. You didn't pack up and say, hey, my life could be easier if I'm not here. You stuck it out. You stayed the course, and you dealt with a lot of shit that you didn't have to deal with. So it says a lot about your character, and I appreciate you as a person. I appreciate everything you guys do. So always welcome on the show. And ladies and gentlemen,
everything. Thank you.
Yep. Until the next time, this is how I end my podcast every time. It's the corniest thing ever. Until next week, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. And always remember to keep on keeping it real. We will see you guys next week. Thank you so much for watching.